Picture this scenario. You walk into a room, look at people socializing, and you think, wow, this is really fun. I'm going to meet nice people here. Once you approach people there, you realize that the conversations are shallow and you start to become more isolated onto the peripheries rather than being a part of the conversation. You start to think, am I just not social enough? Is there something wrong with me? Do I have autism or something along those lines, which makes it hard for me to pick up on social cues? Then eventually it dawns on you. You start to notice that the conversations people there are having are superficial and lack substance. There's no genuine and deep connections being made, especially at the level you crave, which is an intellectual one. You leave that party and think to yourself, man, so many people are not that bright, I guess. You start to think that maybe you are the smartest person in the room, and this shapes how you interact with others from that moment on. You start to think that you cannot relate to anyone on earth, and you will oftentimes feel misunderstood by others. This can quickly turn into a martyr complex where you feel everyone is against you, even though they may not be. So, why does one feel like everyone around them isn't smart? Is it due to arrogance and pride, or is it because there is truth to this belief system? No one wants to be known as arrogant, of course, with the exception of a few people who have no shame. So, more than likely, you'd say it's because it's true. Most people around you aren't as smart, and you'd be right. You see, most people don't take the time to think about deep and philosophical things in life because they're too lazy and don't want to cause themselves unnecessary pain by tackling such issues. Doing so would mean that they need to actually use their brains, which can cause them to feel fatigued. No one wants to feel tired, at least not in this regard. So the majority of people either simply ignore this topic altogether or just satisfy themselves with very superficial and broad answers. It's easier to just fall in line and do what everyone else is doing. Conform. Conformity is easier to do than to think for yourself because very few people like or even tolerate being alone and misunderstood, especially for a long period of time. Humans crave a sense of belonging, safety, and security. So they would rather not jeopardize that by asking tough questions and going against the grain. Usually, people who tend to go against the mold are oftentimes ostracized and looked at as being weird or even dangerous in extreme scenarios. People will notice you in a negative way, and they will begin to slowly distance themselves from you, especially if that's what other people are doing too. You will notice that very few people would stand by your side, and maybe some people would show you pity, but that's as far as it would go. They wouldn't want to associate with you for too long because they don't want to be excluded the way you're being excluded. After all, humans are inherently selfish by nature, and we oftentimes resort to doing things that are in our best interest. 100% pure altruism does not exist. Therefore, when you do decide to stick out in such a way, make sure it's for a good cause. Make sure you're not being stubborn about something trivial and meaningless like what your favorite color and foods are. I would also recommend to not be so dogmatic about your political opinions either, even though those have more implications for your personal life. So many people in America have become extremely dogmatic about their political beliefs, so much so that they will oftentimes alienate longtime friends and family members over very minor and insignificant political differences that can easily be reconciled via a live and let live philosophy. The one thing I would argue is very difficult to compromise on for the most part are morals and religion. These are deeply entrenched beliefs and so would be very difficult to move and change. Even then, I would still encourage you to be open-minded about learning from others' viewpoints on this topic, but use caution and wisdom. Don't fall for the lie which says truth is relative. Not all truth is relative. There are such things as true and untrue beliefs. We cannot ignore this critical fact. If you notice that others are ignoring you for living out a realistic and rational view of the world, then it's safe to assume that those people are lost and prefer living in ignorance. In that case, you don't need to be overly concerned about what they think about you, but make sure that this is really the case and not just you assuming it is so. One way to figure this out is to ask yourself, am I believing this because I can list several verifiable facts to prove it, or am I on an ego trip? Many times we are on an ego trip more so than being martyrs of truth, who are falling victims to those captured by convenient lies. So you have to look closely at your own belief system and your relationships with others before you can jump to this conclusion. You don't have to burn bridges where it's not necessary. Being a lone wolf, especially for the wrong reasons, is infinitely worse than fitting in with the crowd temporarily until you individuate and find your true and authentic self. And even when you find your true and authentic self, you should try as much as possible to use that to bring joy to the world, not drama. If you bring drama, then you are just as much of a problem, if not more so, than those you deem quote unquote beneath you and who can't understand you. Just remember that. So that's it for this video. If you like this content, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and share to get notified about more videos like this one. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.